today's video, we're going to be taking a look here at our current conditions and even taking a look at our upcoming storms because there is multiple opportunities at snowfall in the eastern United States. Even right now, we can see that there is currently snowfall happening in the eastern United States, so it's not too far-fetched to think that there might be more on the way a little bit later on. There is a couple of passing snowfall and rainfall showers happening there over Vancouver Island, and even down into the state of Washington, we're starting to see some of that there. We can also see for areas in California, we could see some snowfall and rainfall depending on your location. And then we kind of get this very interesting storm happening here in the eastern United States. A lot of snowfall on that northern end and a lot of rainfall here on the southern end. And actually, matter of fact, we see that this rainfall extends all the way from Texas and Mexico there, all the way through Arkansas into Tennessee and into Carolina and Virginia there. So very, very interesting pattern we find ourselves in. Now, what I'm actually just going to do is focus in on this snowfall here. I think this is the biggest story happening right now. We're seeing many different areas see snowfall that have not seen much this winter. Now, the mixing is starting out as you're taking a look at kind of Baltimore especially, maybe Washington, D.C. seeing some mixing going on. And then we're seeing full-blown snowfall for areas like Philadelphia here, Harrisburg in Pennsylvania, Scranton, also for New York City and surrounding areas, all of Long Island, Connecticut, Rhode Island, a lot of Massachusetts there, upstate New York like Syracuse, Rochester, Albany. We're seeing all these areas seeing some snowfall, and then we're even seeing a passing snowfall shower or two here for areas in Vermont and New Hampshire, as well as northern Massachusetts. So we are seeing some snowfall. Unlike a lot of what we've seen all winter long, this is actually looking quite typical. I would say this is like your typical wintertime weather here. We have not seen a lot of this at all this winter whatsoever. So I am happy to see this very normal, typical weather after so long of seeing just very, very spring-like weather, to say the least. Now, what we're going to go ahead and do is move on and focus in on that upcoming pattern because there is a whole lot to go over, actually. Now, as we take a look here at our European model, I just want to move this towards by the time we're reaching maybe tonight into tomorrow. We see that most of this eastern storm is now over the ocean here. Low pressure center is probably somewhere in here. And we do see again, minor low pressure system over California that is bringing major impacts. That was a major clarification that we made yesterday. We do see a more major storm actually up to the northwest. With probably less major impacts actually than this one in the southwest, but that low is much, much stronger. I actually had somebody ask in the comments yesterday, if you're watching this today, I want to answer that for you. They asked, how can you tell how strong a low is? Is it by the millibars? And that is correct. That's how we usually determine how low that pressure is, which is going to indicate how strong that low pressure system is. So 1004 millibar low pressure center here is going to be considered very, very weak. So weak, in fact, that it could feature zero precipitation with it, as you can see. And then sometimes we see, even in the wintertime, but especially during the hurricane season, sometimes we see storms in the 970s, 960s, or even 950s or lower. So these are considered extremely strong low pressure centers in those specific instances. We're actually going to see some very strong lows in just a minute here. As we just continue things on, we see this one goes from being pretty much nothing here as far as low pressure, very just broad low pressure, bringing snowfall to multiple different states. And it quickly here drops down to 1,002, 988, 986, 985 here. And this is Sunday into Monday where we expect major severe weather to take place actually, specifically in this corridor here. I'm going to try to draw it accurately. I think that's where we have an enhanced risk at this point of severe weather, mostly for western Oklahoma, portions of Texas, and I don't know if that does extend quite into Kansas, but it might. Usually we expect that in south of the low, which we can see is over Kansas at this point. Now, as we just continue things on here, we can see that this, by the time we're reaching about Monday, develops into a 981 millibar low pressure center, still featuring that cold front, warm front dynamic, which means that a lot of warm air is going to be working its way in east to that cold front, and a lot of cooler air is going to be working its way southward to the west of that cold front. That is going to be your primary look that you're dealing with. And what we're going to be watching for here is a very interesting phenomenon. We're going to be seeing a 990 low here, 999 low right here, and we're going to see all of this energy pretty much transfer over to this coastal low. and then we will see that become the primary low. We call it the secondary low, the weaker of the two. By the time we're reaching about 6Z here, which will be about 2 a.m. on Tuesday, February 28th, this will be our primary low here over the Delmarva, and we're going to start to see snowfall really trending in there. As we just continue this on, we see more and more snowfall as that 990 low takes over. There's also a 991 all the way up here, so we see 990 down here, 991 up there, and this causes snowfall to be possible everywhere in between these two, actually. Definitely a very interesting setup. We see that heavy snow persist all the way into kind of early in the morning on March 1st. After that, we're pretty much left with a jet stream pattern like this, which is much more in line with what we've seen most wintertime long. We can see that this is the look, so warm air surging in from the Gulf. We see a lot of cold air pouring into the west here, which has been a very common theme so far, and pretty much it's going to go down as that. March 1st marks meteorological spring. Meteorological winter will be over with in just a few days, and this winter will basically go down as a major disappointment, obviously. We have major snowfall, speaking of major, happening here across the southwest by the time we're reaching March 1st. But most likely a lot quieter there for the east until March 2nd here, where we have this pretty broad low pressure bringing precipitation up and down the Gulf states and then up the east coast as well. We're dealing with rainfall for most areas and snowfall for those very far northern regions in New England. Then we get about a bit of a southeast slider here right around the 3rd into the 4th. This is a 993 millibar low pressure center, and we're going to start to see snowfall for these areas due to this low. This is the second day in a row that we've seen this storm trend in. On the models is a 999 millibar low pressure center, and we do see snowfall popping up here for northern Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, DC, into portions of Delaware and even southern Pennsylvania. This will need to be watched closely, but there is not a lot of cold air for this one to work with at this point. We do see another strong low develop here at 992, bringing snowfall to the upper Midwest, but it's a pretty low, it's not taking up a lot of space there. It's not bringing a lot of impacts to many different areas. We see a weaker low taking over, but it does have some potential to strengthen. We do see a bit of a warm front, cold front perhaps here. And this could be our next major storm. We do see cold air again pouring in out west. And this warm air is definitely trending northward where that warm front is located. And that is the end of the model run, so let's get into the total rainfall. And this tells the full story of where we expect a lot of storms to take place. We see a lot of them moving onshore to the west here. They transfer over these areas. We showed this yesterday, but basically these areas get less precipitation. We get a couple moving up north like this, a couple moving through like this, and we do certainly get a lot here moving through actually the southern United States here. So there's multiple storms taking that track, and that's why we expect so much precipitation in these areas. Total snowfall here, basically the same as we've seen all winter, where we could see the jet stream, but there is this exception right here that is south of that jet stream for the most part. And that is going to be a very exclusive potential southern slider storm that is going to move up and bring potential snowfall to the mid-Atlantic there, as you can see, perhaps 10 to 12 inches there in the pink. It's a lot of time until we get to that point, so we need to watch it very closely, but this has been a storm that these models have been trending towards. And just as easily as they've started trending towards it, they could trend away from it, so I want to definitely put that out there as well. But we will be keeping an eye on it for sure here. Now let's just take a look at this GFS model. I want to get us to where there's anything debatable happening. Now this potential snowstorm, and it's pretty much almost a sure thing at this point as we're moving closer and closer. But as we're reaching Tuesday morning, we see that there is plenty of snowfall happening in this corridor, and perhaps even further south here than what we saw in the European model. That comes and goes, and then we get these storms moving across more of the south. But your southern slider that we saw on the European model do this is a good 100 miles further north here on the GFS model here, where we see it taking a little bit more of a direct path up the coast. And we're seeing a much more major solution for snowfall this way, where we're getting the Ohio Valley getting plenty of snowfall in here, also the Northeast. So this would be a much snowier solution, but for different folks. And that comes and goes as well. We get a major ridge in the east here by the time we're reaching the 8th of March here. So we're seeing a very ascending jet stream look here in the east. Definitely something like this is what's taking place, and very cold air moving into the very far west regions. Let's keep going with this. And as we can see, we get a trough there over the 11th. That's very far out, so take it with a grain of salt. But it seems like there is some back and forth with the jet stream here. I guess that's a takeaway that we can really work with, but We are seeing more troughs in the east becoming a little bit more common as we work into March, according to this GFS model. That's certainly something that, again, we're going to want to wait and see with. I'm not very confident in that yet. These models have shown that in the long range over and over and over again during the winter, just for that to kind of fizzle away. So we're going to take it with a grain of salt, like I mentioned. Let's just quickly take a look at this European ensemble model real quickly. And as you can see, mostly warm in the east all the way through about the fourth, fifth time frame. And this is right when we'd be seeing a potential snowstorm in these areas. We get just enough cold air moving in near normal to maybe slightly below normal temperatures in this corridor, just enough where we get the potential for snowfall there. So that can change in a hurry, or it can stick around that way. But what we see is over time, that cold wants to trend further and further eastward. And even as we approach the 12th here, this European model is showing even more cold in these areas than it's been showing for previous runs. So we're going to watch this every single day and see if this keeps creeping this cold eastward. Maybe we will see a long-term colder pattern at some point during mid-March if these models continue to trend in this colder and colder and colder direction. But only time will be able to tell, so be sure to subscribe. We will go over this every day as well as everything else. We do upload daily. Also, be sure to hit that bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys in the next video.